Okay, well, I'll get started with the presentation today. This is called Vision to Cloud. And what this is about is how we use AI agents at our companies. We're going to talk about how we have these business problems that we could solve with agents, how to actually go about doing that. We have a AI Nerd Corner where I get a little bit more into some of the specifics of these different models, this terminology, what some of that stuff means. And then at the end, there's a demonstration where you can go on yourself, try out the agent, and get a sense of it in the ERP system, how this works and everything. All right. And then a little bit about myself. So my name is Robert Bender. I'm the CEO of SwyftERP.com and CTO at Enabled Health. And what I've been doing is I've been helping companies, small to medium businesses, grow, transform themselves, and do a digital transformation so that they can use these ERP systems efficiently. And if people don't know what an ERP system is, it's basically one entire database for everything your company does, from order to cash, procure to pay, all of that under one house, under one roof here. And at Swyft, I've been doing that for a little over 13 years as a consultant, helping a lot of different companies. We help companies in the agricultural industry. Manufacturing of organic biopesticides was one company we helped with, where they were manufacturing these things like nematodes and stuff like that, as opposed to Roundup. We worked with other companies, manufacturing robots, fintech companies, wholesale, food distribution, M&A, solar companies, and even some local Seattle companies as well. Yeah, and basically ERP is like QuickBooks on steroids. If I can put it into one word, one phrase rather. Okay. So moving on here. And so I always kind of ask folks, what's the biggest pain point that they're having in their company? Whether they're trying to pay a Verizon bill in an automated fashion, or that they're trying to kind of build some other agentic apps. For myself here is a lot of trying to figure out, I have a deluge so much information. I'm trying to kind of get what I need. I'm trying to get things done that are maybe boring to kind of free up my time. Things like that. And then every company I work with at first, it kind of looks like this guy, where there's just a lot of information. And a lot of these companies, I noticed some of the common themes are they're all using many different Excel sheets and many different formulas in Excel sheets, or they're a company where they have one person that has all the knowledge of the company in their head. And some of these things slow down a lot of progress that companies could do. And I'm talking today about some of these AI agentic solutions that can help give you a knowledge base to query for all the company information. If you ever want to know what your EIN number is and stuff like that, you can easily look that up. And then just spending your time on what matters, so these agents can kind of do the more boring things. And then this talk is a little bit about building the systems and mostly about running these agentic systems. So when we talk about building with agents, we're talking about using Claude Code, building out the architecture, kind of using the humans here to focus on the edge cases and the things that are the hard questions, and then a little bit about kind of why would you use one coding agent versus another. Most people use Claude Code. There's other solutions out there, Open Code and Pi. And Pi is an interesting one because it's more like a very narrow, very deep coding agent that's tailored to exactly what you're trying to do. So you kind of build it for a single purpose, rather than Claude Code, which is the be-all and everything to everyone. And then on the running the business side, there's a lot of boring tasks, or tasks that people ought not to be doing. The daily automations, the chores, and what I'm here today to talk about is kind of building out the harness, not necessarily the model itself, but the harness that will make this model do the meaningful work. And then I got my interest really in earnest with AI with this book. It was published in 2016, so it was a lot, before the whole kind of ChatGPT era. Even I think right before the Attention is All You Need paper came out.
Great book.
Yeah. And I like it because it kind of breaks down the simple terminology, because I feel like in a way AI has become cringy because it gets used for everything. It's kind of gives a understanding that it's more about knowledge bases, and I think of it as like a digital brain. It does store a lot of facts. It does have the ability to understand the connections between those, as opposed to say machine learning, which is more of a is this spam or not spam type of thing. And I also thought it was interesting that some of these models, they can only store a certain amount of information. And for example, a 7 billion parameter model can only have around 3 gigabytes of actual facts of data. The rest is just kind of not the actual factual representation. So at first there were chatbots in 2022, and that seemed very amazing at the time. You could ask the question, but you were copying, pasting, copying the error, pasting it back in, and you're kind of in a loop here. And then something changed towards the end of 2025, where these models, these agents, they started to get very useful because they can handle the tool requests very well. They can handle more longer horizon tasks, and now it kind of leads to where we're at now in terms of the actual harness. And here's just kind of an example of a Claude builder, and really it's just a series of these markdown files logically separated into different folders, or the project instructions. So these models have really terrifically been trained now to traverse the file system. So that is a really powerful thing, and you can use that to build these amazing knowledge bases and amazing harnesses that will really kind of guide it for your purpose-built workflow here. And then a little bit about some of the models you should know or care about, or at least I care about. There's the Quen series, specifically the 27 billion and 35 billion parameters. So those can be run on most people's machines, one GPU or just on a laptop, and they're kind of good for very small tasks or completions. DeepSeek has a great one, but you kind of need something larger. Use 2 DGX Sparks connected together, and you can run these models that are actually very good. I use this for a lot of my business because if I have private data, whether it's PHI, healthcare data, or if it's something, anything for anyone's business, I don't want to give it to Claude or any of the other models. I have a lot of concerns about that.
So if I can
ask
a question. So to host the Kimi, or I don't know how you pronounce that model, so you basically have a dedicated machine, and then you would just download the open weights, and then you use that to drive questions or agentic solutions using that downloaded.
Essentially. Yeah. Not that one, not the Kimi in particular, because that's
DeepSeek or Quen.
The DeepSeek or Quen. I run those on my machines at home. That's a true statement. And especially the DeepSeek one, I'd say that's the sweet spot, because that's really good.
How hard is that to configure? I'm not
It's not really that hard. I bought the machines, and I even asked just Claude to help me configure it, and it's just okay, now it's up and running. So it wasn't, I configured stuff before, so I was also very familiar with kind of how to go about doing that. So it was a little more straightforward. Oh, hi. Hey, come in.
How are you?
Good, good. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Hey. We have some food here, some drinks and everything. Please make yourself comfortable. Just kind of roll along here in the middle of the talk.
Hey, this presentation, is that like something you share? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have the guest list. I'll get your information. Happy to share it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking notes. I just want to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I recommend definitely the DeepSeek Flash. That's like the new one. They actually just came out today with a new version of it, and that is really great. It solves a lot of like my business problems, and you're basically just having this digital brain at home now, and then you can connect it with any agentic tool, even Cloud Code. You can make Cloud Code use this, so it's completely local. Yeah, absolutely. There's some great tools that kind of couple.
But how do we? Because we have AWS and BigQuery and GCP.
Mm-hmm.
If we have that, and we've got a machine, let's say for hosting DeepSeek or Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
how would we integrate this? There is probably a mechanism which can integrate this and the cloud version, right? I guess, for customers.
Yeah. I mean, because you're kind of doing the same thing that Anthropic or any of the folks do. It's just doing what I'm doing at home, which is you provision the hardware, on GCP. You would kind of load the model, and you have to serve it using some sort of inference engine. There's a lot of them. Olama is what people started in at home. It's very simple. Probably VLLM is the best. I would kind of use that if you really want something production grade up and running. But to be fast and to serve multiple people at the same time, you kind of
Have to do it on the cloud.
well, not necessarily. Well, I guess.
Otherwise, it's going to be like if you have, let's say, I don't know, 50 users or 100 users.
Oh yeah.
Then I can't have it on my home box and then serve it up to all the users. Right?
No.
Then I have to partition and do like this
Yeah.
whole bunch of work I need to do in order to make that. Otherwise, I take this, download it on the GCP, and then serve it.
Yeah. You got to use those things if you get to that level of scale. But if you're talking, a small company, 10, 20 people, you can get away with doing it on premise for
Okay.
sure. So
Okay.
yeah. So these are just some of the ones I kind of run locally.
Are you mainly focused on local model or?
No, not all of them. At this point in the presentation, I'm talking more about here's some of the stuff I use and some of the reasons why I use it. But this really applies to whether it's a local model or it's like a cloud or whatever. It's more about the harness engineering, and these, in my view, is like just a digital brain that lives somewhere.
Yeah, I think OpenAI industry just lowers the cost of the mass.
Mm-hmm.
I think basically it optimizes all the open source model out there. I feel like there's no significant reason to use other model.
Yeah.
GPT 5.6 minimize those
Yeah.
things. And because I have a very structural requirement for compliance, I think a lot of open source model and people are really, a lot of US enterprises probably don't want to use it for compliance reason.
Yeah. Well, I think Kimi is definitely kind of disrupting the market and kind of causing these things.
Also, just so I understand, so because of Kimi, GPT-5 came and lowered the price.
Yeah, I think Anthropic and OpenAI are kind of scared right now because Kimi, you can download this waste. It's gigantic, 2.8 terabytes at like half resolution. But it's as good as like Fable for me.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's right there. Definitely as good as Opus for sure. So it's kind of it's a paradigm
I know the
shift.
entire business model is breaking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now anyone can run it. You just need to afford the hardware, which is very expensive right now. But even that's kind of changing with some of the things that happen in China and their manufacturing over there as well. So it's interesting. It's like nothing's really staying too still for too long, and just this rapid rate of change as well is like a lot of products feel like they don't have a very long shelf life either. So it's a very interesting time. So kind of why not just use Claude for everything? So recently, if you and I think they changed this, but I could go on Google and say like site:/Claude.ai/share, and I would see all of the results of people's shared Claude conversations. So I'm not, and some of them I think were even marked as not to be indexed, so I'm not quite sure, just like if you share a Claude conversation, is it getting picked up because someone actually put it on there and Google saw it and added it to this list? Or, is it really private? There's a lot of kind of questions I have around just the privacy, how long they're storing your data, what they're gonna kind of do with it, how you have to kind of opt out of not having your data trained on. And the Chinese labs like, Kimi and DeepSeek and whatnot, like in the terms, they're gonna sell your data to third parties. That's kind of the deal here. So
if you export that data for insights, that data is going to be out there in the public domain, pretty much.
Yeah.
And in exchange for it, you're getting it for no cost.
Yeah. Seems like that's their business model, is like you get it low cost, but you're giving all your data, so you're kind of selling the proprietary.
But what he's saying is even Claude could be similar without actually.
Because if you are enterprise user, there is zero data dependency policy. They are not keeping your data.
Yeah.
Unless if you're on Fable, they don't have that policy in force right now. And
Oh, that's interesting to know.
Oh, Fable, they don't have zero data protection?
yeah, I think that's one reason a lot of enterprises is not adopting Fable. If they have a strong security policy. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I can't use Fable on a HIPAA kind of compliant Vertex for Google, so that's why.
That makes sense now.
And I think for most users, there's no reason for use Fable. Fable, you really need to I think coding definitely require a lot of intelligence. You want to use less photo, but for most enterprise use case, you don't need that smart model. I think Luna is work great for like 99% use case. Even I use code, Luna to write most of the code these days. I think it works great.
Yeah. Well, and also the government kind of nerfed it because when it first came out, you could use it for a lot of development, but then it started deferring a lot of stuff to Opus because all these concerns about, you could hack the whole world and everything. So that's kind of another point to use the local stuff is like, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be the same. You're kind of beholden to these other companies. They can take away the model, they can change it, they can lower its, fidelity, all this stuff, and then you're not really in control of what could happen. And then this is just kind of a visualization here of just the quantization when you're running the models locally of what you can get away with, how small can you make these models for them to still retain a level of intelligence that's sufficient to your tasks. I'm basically saying 8-bit quantization is as low as I would go for coding, and then 4-bit, you can get away with it. It's just more probably like the agentic tasks that aren't so crazy. Hello. Hey. Yeah. Come on in, have a seat. What I'm talking about here is trying to kind of get some of the nomenclature down of tool, skill, harness. What do these things actually mean? And I think of a tool as something like using the command line or this Python script, something like that, some sort of capability. And these the skills are more to me like I think like a recipe, a little how-to guide of how it should do something or how it should think about something when you're giving it a prompt. And then finally, the big one is kind of like the harness, which to me is like the encompassing thing. It's the thing that uses these tools and skills together. And some of these agent platforms incorporate a memory system as well. And you start getting something that's kind of more robust and actually is useful for some real world work.
So is a harness similar to like a horse has harnesses? If you don't have a harness, the horse goes all over the place. Is that a good way to think about, like, analogy-wise?
That's an excellent one. I think I even had a slide to that effect of it's
like a way to tame the horse.
Yeah, because it's like you have this really smart brain. It's read every single book and everything in existence. You can't just let it loose here. You have to kind of constrain it, because you find out that's the way you actually get real intelligence, is when you kind of are really focused here. If you have a company, you could hire somebody and then say, okay, get to work. And they don't know what to do. They could be the smartest person in the world, and they might not be doing stuff that you want them to do. It could be bad. So it's kind of having the constraints. Those kinds of things are super helpful. And then here's this big diagram. This is from a book called Getting Things Done. And this is a little bit of like a heuristic of how I start thinking about some of this stuff for the agents. If I give it something, what's it gonna know how to what to do here? Hi, welcome. So we talk about like the harness and everything. It's kind of like, how is this model, this agent, going to think about this new information that we give it? Because ideally we want to be able to throw whatever we can think of at it, and it's going to take the appropriate steps and appropriate action here. So this is kind of just a visualization of how we're thinking about approaching building out these harnesses to actually make these agents useful. Giving it a memory system, so it remembers what you talked about yesterday. Giving it a long-term memory so it has a full context here of like, well, what is your business?
Can I take a photo or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, awesome.
You send the slide. I don't have to take pictures.
Yeah, I'll send out the slides to everyone as well here. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and so at our company, we kind of we do the consulting. We work with these other small and medium businesses, and we try to kind of really understand, well, what are the processes, because that's ultimately the only thing that really matters. And kind of to your point earlier, just like if you don't have these harnesses, you don't have these things in place, it could be chaos, because the agent could do anything. It's like I remember I worked at a job once. They had a new hire, and his first day he changed everyone's passwords because of security reasons, of course. And it's just so that's kind of like the concern here. You're gonna end up like with some scenario that's all over the place, and it's not really kind of doing what you really want to do. So when you bring in a harness, especially for your company here, you're really kind of constrained to do specific things. And so because I'm into enterprise resource planning and helping companies with that, we try to take these AI agents and apply those ERP principles, where we give them roles and permissions. So they're kind of constrained on that level, that they can only do so much in the company. They can't, start firing everybody or changing passwords. And over time of using these things, if there are mistakes that do get made or things that you didn't think about ahead of time, those can become skills that go back into the harness. So it will know in that scenario never to do that again. Because it will remember this, it'll go look at the list of skills here, then it'll say that's relevant, read it, and go from there.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I guess like with a normal ERP, it's like you have employees and you might give them different roles and permissions. And so like how, in your opinion, would an AI agent would you do it similar to an employee when you're granting permissions, and how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I fundamentally think of it as the same thing as another person, where I'm going to give them a role and I'm going to say what they're allowed to view. I don't want them to view anything else that they shouldn't have access to, what they're allowed to edit, what they're allowed to create. So I treat it the exact same as a person. And I'll be showing a demo towards the end that it's not like that, where it has full access to the system, and then you all can actually play with it and see what you can do with it.
Do you use MCP to set up the rules and boundaries of what you can do?
No. We kind of just give the agent access to an API that is the same as a person logging into the system that's signed in with a user account that has these roles attached to it.
And you'd also give it the API keys and all that.
Yeah, the API key is just like its username and password to log in, and then it's, as soon as it logs in, it's assigned its roles, so, it can't do whatever it wants. It's very analogous to like a person logging into their.
But in some other applications, you have API keys. Let's say you want to connect with, I don't know, SAP's backend.
Mhm.
I'm using
Yeah.
SAP as since you're discussing ERP. They must have some API keys to access their systems. So would you recommend that the agents have possession of the keys and like you have to put in some boundary conditions on what it is that the keys are used for?
Yeah.
And so you have to have a pretty detailed markdown file, I guess, that explains every step of the way.
Well, if you're talking about, how would I have this agent kind of create an endpoint that this other outside system could access, then it still kind of fits that paradigm of here's my developer role, and I'm giving to the agent to go ahead and create something.
So you create a developer agent, and thou shalt not do these 10 things, and you put that in the markdown file.
Yeah, and I think one of these things that's like people are really scared about is like, I can't just let this thing doing stuff I don't know what's going on, this black box in my company, making all these changes. And what I've learned through my own personal experience is that when you start out very small, you start gaining confidence yourself. And it's like, okay, it's doing that, it has it screwed up, so I kind of extend the harness, the leash here a little bit more. And you kind of, it's an iterative process of kind of, you have to trust this thing and have confidence that you know what it's doing, which only really comes, over time.
And like, let's say you're running some marketing campaign with a budget, would you let the agent automatically change the budget without telling you, or do you think we should basically ask the human before the budget is increased or decreased?
Yeah, I mean, I always start out with, you don't do anything in the outside world without coming to me first.
As a human,
But there are certain things where I get confidence to it, where it's like, and you can even give it a credit card that only, has a limit, things like that.
But that limit is observed, or is that like, will it break that or something?
No, because you're kind of putting the wall up where it can never log into your, credit card account and actually change the limit or something like that. You're kind of operating that way.
Okay.
So, but using it long enough, even if it was limitless, you would have some confidence that it wouldn't do that because of the back and forth and the rules that you established over time.
And you ever use it mostly in the sandbox and then you decide what to push to production, or
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
also use it in production sometimes?
Yeah. Use it in production, but yeah, I mean, you kind of have to thoroughly test it in your sandbox account to have that confidence. And then sometimes it's, even though you know that you could, you wouldn't do it in production, but you just, have it generate the answers in the sandbox and then push that, or even have maybe a special agent that pushes things and that's all it does. Based on your
And also, like, would you recommend that you expose the actual DB, all the stuff, like hundreds of tables, or would you create a separate sandbox which you let the agent handle?
Well, because it's using those roles and permissions for earlier, those roles and permissions limit which tables and columns in those tables and things like that it even has access to. You can definitely expand that permission in the sandbox to like maybe rapidly develop so you don't have to deal with these role issues. But kind of in production, we're very kind of strict about which roles and permissions it can have, what it can and can't do. And you can always put guardrails in place too for anything that would face a customer, because you don't want to send emails to some customer that you be aware of it. And what's great about these things is like there is a really ease of use of creating integrations with other things. Building integrations typically was like an onerous process, but now it's just, hey, connect to Slack. And the system will connect to Slack. It may ask you for certain keys or instruct you here, log in here, click this and do it. But it is pretty amazing. You can build these pipelines as part of your harness as well. You know, I built some simple ones that are very useful. I scan some snail mail, it gets OCR'd here by the system. That gets put into my ERP as an actual transaction. And then I have my bank and credit cards, give them notifications to a Gmail account. And that Gmail account, the agent has access to just that one. And now it can kind of reconcile these things, know if they've been paid, you know, knows if I have invoices that are still you know, out there. So it's really kind of amazing how you can build these things and use these for like kind of simple, boring business things that you can just stay on top of. And there's also some other, you know, that are very interesting here of like using voice. I helped one company here just on the AI agents for the kind of incoming calls of how to route them with you know, sounds like a person, but it's actually AI. So a lot of these things are available in open source. It is a little bit to build it. There are some other great tools out there that are kind of pre-built solutions that you can kind of use as well. Yeah, and then so like some real world examples here. These are like some kind of common back office problems at a company. Like if you order 10 of something, you receive 9 of it, but you get billed for 12 of them. You know, that's a three-way match problem that the AIs can kind of figure out and decide. You can ultimately make the decision of, you know, well, like what do you want to do with the situation? Do you want to ask for a refund or send something back? And they help with a lot of the, you know, supply and demand planning as well. Having complete access to the order history, everything that's going on, understanding lead times, understanding particular customers, when orders come in, they know that customer, that they can kind of allocate things appropriately. And then lastly, we have like the data hygiene aspect, where it's just every company I've worked at, they have kind of duplications of data. There's like a fuzzy match problem between a John Doe and a Jonathan Doe, and things like that. And they can kind of clean that stuff or bring it to your attention for you to make a decision here. Okay, and then this here. So this is just it's a little sped up here, and hopefully you all can see it okay. But what this is the AI agent here, that if you scan the barcode, you could go to that yourself and check it out. And it's doing an invoice reconciliation problem. So we're just asking the agent, hey, like what invoices have not been paid? And it will show me that. And I say, okay, great, like, you know, check the kind of bank account. Have any of the payments come in? And it says, okay, yes, these payments have come in. And I'm like, great, run the reconciliation. So it goes through my entire ERP system, it finds those invoices, it finds the bank payment, and applies the appropriate payment to that invoice. So now I can say that, all right, that's marked as paid in full.
Do I take questions now or later?
Yeah, I'm kind of playing with this.
I want to interrupt your flow.
Yeah.
So we use NetSuite, Sage, and Coupa. So do you coordinate with any of those? Do you work with those? Are you great with those?
Yeah, I've been, you know, I used to sell NetSuite. I've been consulting for NetSuite for over a dozen years now. You know, and I've integrated, you know, Coupa. I've helped people migrate from Sage to NetSuite. So I build special tools that are kind of more particular for NetSuite because I understand its API, how that works. This demonstration was more about an open source ERP system. So it's a little easier to kind of show everybody, and it does work pretty much exactly the same as NetSuite, for example.
I work for Crusoe. I get usually car accidents.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I work for Crusoe AI. It's a AI company in Denver.
Oh, okay.
It's a Neo Cloud. But yeah, if you want to get connected with ERP, can help you out.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, it's very good to know. Yeah, so kind of going right along here. There's some QR codes here and up on the screen. And this is just a demo account. So you could log in there yourself if you wanted to take a look at it, and then there is an agent button. When you log in, you click that, and now you have access to this agent. You have full access to the ERP system, and you can try to do this invoice reconciliation or some of those other problems, and just see how it actually goes and view the records in the ERP
Do you
system.
charge for like usage credits tokens, or is it just a monthly SaaS?
Right now, this is just something new that we're kind of rolling out, and the only model is just like a surcharge based on the token usage. And then kind of just overall, I guess kind of wrapping up here, is some of the big problems that I see right now is these models aren't perfect, and over time, you can't do these very long horizon problems. It's going to fail. So you still need the person in the loop. I don't think that's really going away. And the future here is like, once we get these models, I can do more continuous learning, where it doesn't actually ever end, and it can actually do it well. And then the agent on that QR code here is that has a memory system. So we're trying to kind of replicate that idea here. I don't think we're quite there, but it's getting there and better every day. And then definitely kind of JEPA, that whole idea, I think is part of the future here, where it's not just like predicting pixels, but it has like, you know, predictive ideas of what's going to happen next. I think that would be a big thing. So kind of ending here is, these are just like a handful of different repos that I thought were pretty interesting.
This morning there was a talk on gas time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay,
The advanced training with Cloud, I think somebody demonstrated gas time.
Yeah. You gotta be careful with gas tap, because it just spends money constantly. I fired it up once, and like my whole weekly usage was gone like very quickly. But gas sounds very interesting, because the whole idea is that it's just gonna do everything.
It's like a factory.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
like
it is,
talk
yeah.
to the mayor and be like, here, build me a Slack clone. And it starts doing it, it starts delegating each department. They have their sub-agents, like this sub-agent's all the way down until the thing's done. And all you do is just check in with the mayor and see, well, how's the Slack clone doing? And then that's it. The mayor is like the agent. GSD, get shit done, is kind of the same idea a little bit. It's not as crazy as Gastown. And then Herder, that's a great kind of interface to run multiple agents in one terminal view. If you have multiple projects going on at one time, it's easy to switch between them, have the context there. It's always something you use on your phone or go back to. And then Ponytail, it's just like the guy at the company has been there forever, and it's a thing that will take a lot of the long code that the AIs generate, because they're getting paid by how much tokens they can generate, and condensing that down to like one line. So it's a little, it can help streamline things and tell you if you're not going to need this piece of code or not. So yeah, so that was my talk. Thank you everybody for attending here. If you ever need any sort of consultation for ERP services, questions about AI agents, kind of anything in general, I'm happy to.
Would you be open to like the data project that we're doing? I think I explained
Yeah.
when I first came here. Is that in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, I'd be happy to kind of talk about that a little more in depth, kind of understand, and speak to like, well, what does that architecture look like that's actually going to work here? Thank you for attending, Seattle. Appreciate it.
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah.
Do you have much lead when you engage the memory? Do you get like a lot of like hallucinations from different memory sessions? Have you noticed that? Or is that early days for the memory?
Well, that's something you have to be careful with. Almost like you want to have different profiles for these different things you're doing. Like, this is my researcher. I'm going to talk to this to go find ideas and brainstorm, so this is my accountant. I'm just going to talk to them about the accounting stuff.
Yeah.
And having that segmentation is very helpful, because if you just throw it all at one, over time, maybe not right away, not in a week or two, but after that, you're gonna start getting a little like, you should know that, but it doesn't. So
Yeah.
keep it kind of, like you would treat different departments in your company
Cool.
in that way.
Which model are you running underneath of it?
Um,
28 or-
So let me have to go back here to some of the other ones when I was talking about it. I mean, these are some of the ones, and I kind of divide this up into like, what I run locally versus like what I kind of run in the cloud. Like locally, I'm using like the Quen models for very simple things, and then also DeepSeek version 4 Flash. That's like the best one for local stuff. That's your workhorse. It will, you can have two DGX Sparks connecting together, and then you have completely private AI, and it's really quite phenomenal. It's amazing that and you can even serve up to like about 8 people at once. It had acceptable token generation speeds.
What kind of rig do you need to run that setup?
You'll need 2 of these NVIDIA DGX Sparks. So it's a little expensive.
20 grand a pop or more?
No, they're $4,000 a pop. Yeah. So you get 2 of them, you connect them optically, then you're leveraging kind of this tensor parallelism between them, and it works really well. But beyond that, you got to do one of the big frontier models is to make it to useful. And those have their own kind of harnesses baked in. So with the open ones, you can kind of develop your own. It's for your company, and it's not going to change because government could take this, cloud away tomorrow.
Like they did with Mythos or what they did with Fable 5.
Yeah.
Can you do any fine tuning on these, or are these pretty much?
Oh yeah, the open models are completely yours, and that's kind of like a good question of, are you going to fine tune it, or do you just kind of give it more of the context that it needs because it is smart enough. It doesn't really need to be fine tuned because sometimes fine tuning is more stylistic. Because it's really hard to add more information in its brain. There's a limit of how much facts these models can know, and they're pretty baked in there. So it's better just to kind of have a knowledge base.
Yeah. Are RAG systems still a thing anymore? Nobody uses RAG anymore. It's too expensive to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of evolved. I feel like, for me, I create like a little wiki for the thing. Whereas it's like, here's the folder, all the subfolders. It's so good traversing the file system that I put everything in logical areas that it'll be able to kind of find it.
Just like the cloud.md file.
Yeah, exactly. So similar.
So what is the distinction between the RAG systems and the MD files that you're talking about? Like, is there a technical difference, or is this more for, because everybody talked about RAG, and that's he was saying.
Yeah.
But now everybody's talking about something else. So what is I'm not following all the puts and takes, but I'm just kind of curious since I'm sure you are.
Yeah, I think the RAG system is, that's what kind of when it first came out, I understood that being more like, we're gonna have this huge vector database. We're gonna throw all this information in it, that's gonna be easy for the model to use. It'll reference that and retrieve it. And that, worked okay back then. I just think that as these models have progressed, they've been trained to do these tasks a lot better of just searching and finding out the information for themselves. So and maybe that's what RAG has kind of evolved into at this point. But this stuff changes day by day. So it's kind of like nothing that even everything we're talking about now, it does have a short shelf life. It could change tomorrow.
Is RAG, you become from RAG to riches?
That should be your topic.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that one.
I just made it up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very interesting. The stuff changes so quick, and yeah.
How much does it cost to like run an open model versus, like if you're running cloud, like Opus or?
If you're trying to run that thing,
Yeah.
I mean, it's prohibitive. Like, I don't know, it's gonna be, I feel like like $10,000 every few days or something. I don't know. It's gonna be very expensive.
If you host it on Google.
Yeah, if you try
But
to.
if you do it on your own, like maybe like a $100,000 machine.
One-time cost. Yeah, actually, I saw somebody, they bought like these DGX Sparks. I think they bought like 16 of them or something like that, and connecting them all together.
How
It's
much
about
will it cost them?
about 70 grand, but then you could run that at home. So I'd say that's kind of probably the forefront. I don't know how fast it would be. I mean, it might be okay, but
But will you get the NVIDIA, the best chip? I mean, you don't need the best chips.
no, there's only one thing you care about, and that's like how much VRAM, how much of this video RAM memory you have. More, the better. You know, that's really the name of the game, because when you see these numbers, I kind of just translate it how many gigabytes. I need 35 gigabytes, 158 gigabytes, 2.8 terabytes of memory, and especially the GPU memory to actually make it work in a reasonable speed. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or thoughts or anything?
Yeah, I saw your agent is essentially the commerce agent. I'm trying to understand what's the actual product you're trying to sell it. Is it like a database, like for all the systems to work together?
Oh, for like the point of the agent? Or,
Yeah, because I thought the agent is just commerce, right?
Yeah, it's Hermes agent in ERP Next, and I think trying to demonstrate like how you can kind of connect and bundle all these open source things and actually get something that's meaningful. But it does take some time to actually build out the harness itself. And Hermes agent is a really good thing to kind of get started with that. But ultimately you will need to build these things out correctly and constrain them for your system so you don't have chaos, essentially.
Can you, sorry, finish your question.
Yeah, so my question is also, is your product like the harness, how to harness the agents in the enterprise system? Yeah, basically trying to understand what's the actual product.
Yeah, it's like every business is unique. Like the ERPs kind of capture the core stuff that's common among many businesses, but every company that I've worked on consulting for, they have very specific processes of doing these things and very specific ways they want, payments to be done and things like that. So I'm trying to say that the benefit of the harness is leaning into that, unique business processes and then putting it kind of, in plain English here of what this model should be doing for these different things. And I think that's a lot of the value here.
But it sounds like too, it's like a layer on top of an open source ERP that's able to be customized.
Yeah. You're kind of layering these ideas here of these what open source can do, and you're kind of injecting your unique workflows into the model, into the harness here, so that like when it gets some information, it knows exactly what to do with it. You only need to kind of tell it one time for it to have that pipeline built out. So, yeah.
One quick question. So YC Gag Can has put out something called the G Stack. I don't know if you've used it, and that you could just use that to run like a 0% organization. Literally, like I don't know, maybe it's an exaggeration.
Yeah.
So it creates these personas, like from CEO all the way to anyone else in the company.
Yeah.
And everybody's persona has certain sort of harnesses, skills, all that stuff. So you give this, and then you let the beast do this. Is that something you envision being?
I tried that. I played with that because I think we all like that idea. And
Like a 0% organization.
Yeah, anthropomorphizing the whole idea of having a company with different departments and different people, different roles, and stuff like that. But ultimately, I don't think those things don't actually work in real life because there's not one template for every company, and I think that's like the problem here that I'm trying to like kind of address is like there's no magic solution here. It's gonna have to be built for what you actually want and understanding how your company actually works and how to put those processes in place.
But would you recommend taking that as a start point, like whatever he's got, and then use that to build the right one? Or is that like what he has, is it just all fluff?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on your application. It feels a little fluff to me, I guess. But it's kind of like, where do you run these things on? Are you doing this for an ERP system? Like, are you doing this just to cobble together all these outside systems and have it all kind of like work together? I guess it's more like a nuanced question, but I think ultimately it's like it requires a level of personalization. It's not like here's what the CEO does, here's what the
Yeah, he basically
yeah.
created this harness or something, or this stack, and then he claims that you don't need anybody, and then you just, every persona is there.
Yeah, and I think the models are kind of smart now. They know what an accountant does. They know what a CEO does. You may have to explicitly tell them. You just need to know, okay, well, for this system, here's how you should be working, and here's some of my real world data, and I can tell you as the source of truth, did you do the right thing or not?
But do you see a future in which, let's say, you break the all industry into very thin slices, and you create a stack which does everybody's function, and only for that industry, for that vertical, for that size of company? That means you just need to create that, and then the rest of it is done. It's no human being.
Yeah, I think that's the dream of some people, these AI, like dark factories, and all this stuff is just gonna work magically. But in the other slide there, I'm just like, hey, after 50 steps, this thing has an 8% success rate. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll have some breakthroughs and we'll get there, but to me, it's like, I don't see that actually happening.
Okay,
So,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think you need a human here to actually say what's important and, if you got the right answer or not, type of thing. So, all right. Is there any other questions or anything? Thoughts? All right, well, yeah, thanks so much for attending the talk, everyone. I appreciate it.